see what's going on, y'all. All right, we are back. It's day 12, and your girl got her hair did. The whole point is after a few days, I will unravel these beauties, and they will be all nice and crinkly. Welcome to day 12. We're talking about self-reflection, and I have 6 self-reflection questions that you could actually begin to use immediately that will help spark change in your life. They were helpful for me, and I hope that they will be helpful for you. And if you want to dive deep after you watch this live, feel free. I have 125 self-reflection questions that you can get in the link in my bio. It's completely free to get you started. But I always wonder about, sometimes what makes it hard for people to change or to begin on the change process is that some of them aren't consistently making time for self-reflection. Because without self-reflection, it's really hard to know the things that need to change and why. Why does it matter? How is it impacting your life? And so what makes this really hard for people, well, first, sometimes people don't have a vehicle to begin that self-reflection process. And so they don't really know how to get started. And sometimes, what's going on to here? And sometimes it's finding the right tool that can help spark that feels comfortable for you. And then other times it's making it a priority. Are you prioritizing self-reflection on a weekly basis? The way that I do it is through journaling and just constantly consuming material that kind of helps me think a bit deeper about my life. And sometimes a relationship will actually do that for you, right? Relationships are mirrors, so they will tell you what is and what ain't working, okay? But self-reflection has to be a priority. But the reason why it can be hard for folks is because, I have to constantly look at something that doesn't really feel good. I have to actually face some of the challenges that I'm experiencing. I rather sort of kind of want to be like an ostrich and put my head in the sand and pretend like everything is kosher. And the reason why it's hard is it's just a very tough conversation for people to have for themselves, because self-reflection requires a bit of humility. And without that humility, it's going to be hard to open yourself up to change, because then from humility, you have vulnerability. And so that whole process can be really difficult for folks. But when you're constantly in self-reflection mode, you can really stay up to the change process. You can actually prevent things that might happen by sort of consistently being aware of yourself, right? Because it's how do I gain self-awareness? How do I know that I need to be self-aware? And it's constantly taking time to really reflect, because part of self-awareness is being able to look at patterns, right? The patterns in our lives will tell us how things are moving forward. And with patterns, there are habits. Everything that we learned, whether it's a detriment to ourselves or whether they enhance ourselves, it's habits. Habits can be formed to give us a wildly beautiful life, and then habits can be formed to really cement us in lives that we aren't really proud of, right? So let's get cracking on these 6 self-reflection questions. And hopefully, again, this kind of sparks you on your path. And self-reflection is really just about looking from the inside out, because when you constantly take inventory of your life, again, you can see what's working and what's not working. And so the first question we have, I love this question: write the words that you need to hear. Sometimes, when we have difficult relationships with people, or sometimes we're not getting the encouragement that we really need. Sometimes it can be superficial encouragement, especially if you're I had a client session this week, and people sort of applauded her for working so hard, and she was actually in constant burnout, right? So sometimes the encouragement that you're receiving might not be the encouragement that you need. So take a moment and just kind of write the words that if you heard them today, at this moment, it would literally change your life. And when you write this, it's not about like feeling bad or anything. Obviously, feel the feelings that come to the surface and be authentic with it. But it's not about judgment. That's what I mean. It's not about judgment. It's about, how do I empower myself? That question is about like reclaiming your own personal power. We don't need to wait for other people to give us permission to be powerful. We are already powerful. But it's about tapping into that power as much as you can on a regular basis. So that question could help you reconnect with that. Okay. And then the second question is, write about a time that work for you felt real, necessary, and just really satisfying. Felt like in alignment, whether that work was paid, underpaid, or not paid at all, whether it was professional, domestic, physical, or mental, whatever it was. Write about that time where work really felt satisfying for you. And the reason why that's important is because sometimes we're working in, toxic environments. Sometimes we're working in fields or industries that we really are no longer aligned. On me, guys. Yeah, am I back? I don't even know. Am I back? Oh, Lord. I think I got disconnected. Give me 1 second. If anyone's still on the live, let me know you can actually hear me. My cousin keeps calling me, so I gotta send her a quick WhatsApp message and be like, don't call me. I'm on a live. All right. Okay. Well, this is the real deal, right? This is the real deal. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, write about a time where work felt really satisfying to you, because when we've been on the grind for a while, we become really disconnected from the things that used to bring us joy. And so we forget that we have a choice. When I was working for like 6.5 years as a social worker, and I got really burnt out. But I also felt like I didn't have a choice. There was something in me that felt like I didn't have a choice to like leave this job because I had bills to pay. I had a kid to take care of at the time. And so it was like, you're really programmed to think that you don't have options. And that is a complete lie. And so how can you be more intentional and selective with the kind of work that you actually want to do or want to be connected with? And also being intentional with that also brings you the right kinds of circumstances and the right kind of people that to come around you, right? Because sometimes if we're in a toxic environment and we're constantly feeling like crap, then what's going to happen is that we're just going to attract more situations and people to keep us feeling that way, right? And so you don't have to accept crappy working conditions just to pay the bills. And sometimes when we're in survival mode, that is what we need. And I get it. And so there might be a point in time where you need to create an exit strategy, right? So sit down and create that plan. And because often we can't move forward until our basic needs are met. But, could you take something that's less pay? When I quit my job, I went and did something I worked on commission, and I would never worked on commission before. What did it feel like to not get paid in like 30 days? That was wild to me. I was so used to getting a consistent paycheck that was a huge adjustment for me. But the trade-off was like, I wasn't in that toxic work environment anymore. So for you, it could be like, what would be the trade-off? So take a moment to think about what would be the best, most satisfying condition for you. And another question to ask is like, think about where you would be, what you would be doing, who would be around you. Then ask yourself, how can you in 2023, we have 6 months left in the year, just about. How could you do more of this kind of work that lights you up, that gives you that spark? Even if it's just a few hours a month, how can you build, create, and connect with more meaningful work? All right. So number 3 is, have I done anything lately worth remembering? And this is a powerful question because it helps you to sit down and think about, like, am I just going through the motions? Like, why haven't I done anything in my life that felt meaningful to me, right? There's a psychologist, his name is Erik Erikson, and he had written the 8 stages of a person's development. And one of the stages is the 7th stage, and it's called generativity versus stagnation. And so this usually happens, per Erikson, between the ages of 40 and 65. This is the stage where people start to begin to think about the things that will outlast them, right? Your legacy. So this is a time where life really becomes less about you and more about others and the impact that you would like to have. So ask yourself, have I done anything lately worth remembering? I usually have my clients write an epitaph, and an epitaph is like that one line on your grave that says, here lies so-and-so, they were known for X. If somebody were to write an epitaph about you, what would they say? What would they say about how you lived, right? So really dig deep about this one because, life can become just a quick blur. And we can really one day look up and wish that we did a bit more, did more things that were meaningful, things that mattered, that we spent less time on the, petty things, right? The things that just really didn't matter. So, and then how can I do more of that, right? And how can I fill my life with more meaningful moments, more meaningful conversations, more meaningful adventures? And it doesn't have to be anything like super big, right? I think sometimes we want this extravagance, like this, we want things to be extravagant, we want it to be this enormous thing. And it could be as little as, helping an old lady cross the street, holding the door open too, right? But, use your imagination and take some time to think of, like, have I done anything lately worth remembering? And if not, how come? What is getting in the way? What is the resistance that's preventing you from actually doing that? And then number 4, which is a very big question, am I living true to myself? What does it mean for you to live a life that is yours, right? And it's not about being sometimes, being selfish is not a bad thing. It's not about being, I guess what I would say, like, totally locking people out of your life. But, am I being at my most authentic self? What does it mean for you to live the truest life that you could ever live? Living true means also living and walking your values. When your values are concise, it makes it very clear to make decisions. It makes it very clear for you to sort of walk the path without any hiccups, right? But when we don't know what our values are, when we're not connected, then we get easily swayed by things, or we begin to take on other people's expectations of us, right? So being authentic means that you're totally being honest with yourself and other people constantly. To me, the most peaceful life is a life that is filled with truth. If your life is not filled with truth, it is going to cause you some conflict, for sure. So be very mindful about that. And in this process, also next, ask yourself, whose life are you living? Is it yours or someone else? And why? What is the resistance between you and your truest self? And then finally, what would your life look like if you were, without a question of a doubt, living your truest life? What would be different? How would you feel? How would you show up? How would you speak? How would you connect? And so just take a moment and use your imagination and really connect deeply with that, so that you can begin to experience what it would feel like to just come from the truest place possible. Hey, babe. The fifth question I have for y'all is, and this is a big one because, as you know, all these questions that you're asking yourself is about getting outside of your comfort zone, right? Even just doing these self-reflection questions is a step closer to you getting out of your comfort zone. So the fifth question is, when did I last push the boundaries of my comfort zone? If life is real comfortable right now, growth is not happening. Growth is not happening. When I look at the last, I don't know, almost decade of my life, there's a lot that happened. 2013 was it 2013 when I left my job? I think so. Yeah, 2013. This year, 10 years. Oh my gosh. I left a good paying government job. Literally, I worked for the state. I became an entrepreneur, failed at it, moved across state lines. My family thought I was crazy. I lost a lot of weight. I had left 2 toxic relationships. I lost my dad. I relocated to different countries. Lost my brother. So it's been a wild 10 years. So if you're at a point in your life where things just don't feel right, where things feel like they're missing, where you want more, you want depth, right? And the most significant requirement that life asks of you is, are you willing to step outside your comfort zone? Because there's no way. I always use a quote by Susan David who says, a meaningful life, discomfort is the price you pay for a meaningful life. For you to have a meaningful life, the life that you desire with the most authenticity, balance, harmony, and peace, there is going to be discomfort. There's going to be discomfort. Thank you, Nicolette. I actually lost him in 2016, but I received all that, and my heart goes out to you too as well. So it's through that discomfort that all the magic will happen in your life. And that's something, I don't make a lot of promises, but that is something I can promise you, okay? If you're constantly looking for ways to be a little uncomfortable, you're just building up so much resilience muscle. You are literally building your resilience. Sometimes people want to say, like, how do I get better at this? How do I get better at that? You got to practice. That's all. I don't know what else. You got to practice. I remember I was taking a blogging course when I lived in Japan. I already mentioned the course before. And it was wild because I was obviously in like a 14-hour time difference. So I was taking this class at like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. Commitment. When Fran pay for something, Fran gonna show up, okay? But anyway, one of the activities was you needed to lay across the ground in a busy place. And I remember that day I had gone to some outing with some expats. And I was like, well, better do this now while there's lots of people. And I laid on the ground for a good few minutes, like I think maybe 5-10 minutes or something like that. And it was so uncomfortable because people walking by and they're looking at me like, what is this girl doing on the floor? But after a while, it was like not a big deal. Like people moved on. I'm sure they had a quick laugh about it. They may have mentioned it to their spouse or whatever. And then it just was not a second thought. So as much as we think about like how people are going to judge us, and most people are just thinking about themselves. Okay? Just like you're only thinking about yourself. So don't worry about what other people think in that sense. The most important piece of the puzzle is you and your personal growth and your soul's growth. So just focus on that. Okay. So are you willing to sort of get out of your comfort zone? Soul Vibe Honey Hive. Oh, you're so welcome. The divine is always on time. I need a t-shirt. We need to add that to anyway, let me not give away that surprise. Anyway, that's a good t-shirt. All right, the sixth and last question is, what do I want most out of life? Have you asked yourself this question lately? Have you sat and really thought about what is it do I really need? sometimes the question is fleeting. Like it just comes in and it comes out, but we really don't sit and be very intentional and unravel what's underneath that thought. And so ask yourself, what do you want? I had a client call today, and I had asked her, I was like, okay, I hear everything that you're saying. What is it that you want out of this situation? What do you want from this life? Not what other people are, what other pressures are being put upon you, not what society says, not what your spouse says. What is it that you want? Not what you should be doing or need to be doing, none of that. But what is it that you want? Regardless of your conditions, regardless of your situation, what is it that you want? For some of you, you have an idea of what that is. And some of you, you might have to dig a little bit deeper. There's no right or wrong. It's all about resonance. What is resonating with you? And remember, what would help also is like, remember what used to feel good. Just kind of like that earlier question. What are those elements that you could recreate or develop for the first time that will give you the most out of life, right? So I hope these questions were good. Bookmark them, go back to them, begin that process again. If you want to go deeper, you can get my 125 self-reflection questions. It's free. Dive in and let me know how you're doing with it, if you do actually do it. And I'm going to leave you with this quote by Ella Mellart. It says, "It is always our own self that we find at the end of the journey. The sooner we face that self, the better." Okay? Thank you for watching. Thank you for chatting with me. And I will see y'all mañana. Take care.